Greetings, brothers and sisters, JoJo. Every time I stop it, he looks confused, you know? We're halfway through his initial press conference. He's doing poorly. You know, he's made some gaffes already, but he's getting killed on policy. His immigration policy, where he's trying to blame everything on Trump, and people aren't buying it because they know he's changed the laws and he's changed the perception around immigration. So even these reporters are, they're slamming him because he can't blame this on Trump. Everyone knows this is his mess, right? And so he's only 62 days into his presidency, and he's already lost the everything's Trump's fault card. He's going to play it for a while, but as things implode on him, which they're gonna, because they were going to implode on anybody. I kept on saying that. Whoever won this mess, right, post-COVID 2021 mess, was going to have a really bad year. And it's JoJo. And now he's, paying for it here.
And then on a related note, have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to.
Joker smile. Joker. He's going after Trump. Nobody's laughing, JoJo.
My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him.
Have you?
No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
And then on one other note, on bipartisanship, your old friend, Mitch McConnell, says you have only spoken to each other once since you took office, and that you have moved far left since taking office. Do you see it the same way he does? Have you rejected bipartisanship?
No, I haven't at all. I've been meeting. When's the last time a president invited the opposite party down at least a half a dozen times to talk about issues, everything from how we work. We're working with a group of 20 members of the Senate.
Just, he's incoherent, right? This is, pretty good for JoJo. Like, JoJo has done a pretty good job so far. He's had a lot of sort of semi-gaffes, and he's babbling a little bit confused. But this is, the best that JoJo can do. But still, it's not good, right? I mean, it's still subpar. Like, he's getting a D-, and this is just his first press conference. They're going to get worse. He's going to have some bad ones. They're not going to be able to protect him every time, right?
Senate right now and House on how we reestablish our ability to make computer chips and how we get ahead of the game, how we can work together. We're working together on a bunch of things. But look.
So you're meeting with the Republicans and talking about how we can rediscover how to make computer chips? At least he didn't say phonographs, I guess. It's a win for JoJo.
I know Mitch well. Mitch knows me well. I would expect Mitch to say exactly what he said.
I looked Mitch in the eye and I said, "You don't have any soul."
But this is a matter of making sure that I would like elected Republican support. But what I know I have now is I have electoral support from Republican voters. Republican voters.
What kind of voters?
But what I know I have now is I have electoral support from Republican voters. Republican voters agree with what I'm doing. And so unless Mitch says the last thing I did, this last piece of legislation is so far left, well, then he ought to take a look at his party. Over 50% of them must be over that edge as well, because they support what I did. Okay.
Yeah, JoJo's got, he had his high was 54% approval as a new president, and it's, plummeting right now. It's going down because of the various crises. So he had his honeymoon period, and it was barely cracked 50%, which is bad for him. Bad for everybody in terms of the Democrats, right? Because, he's just going to have bad news. 2020, leftover 2020, the consequences for shutting down the economy and all the rest of it, those things are going to start to snowball. And so, this guy's not up to the challenge. And the Republican voters, he's just so strange, right? He's very weird. But the Republican voters' support he's talking about has to do with the bailout money, the COVID stimulus package. And we give people free money when they hear they're going to get money. Yeah, they're all going to, yeah, all right, yeah, we love you. You know, you're not going to be able to give Republicans money all the time. I mean, that's a one-time issue where no matter who what party the person belongs to, if you're getting money, yeah, you're going to prove that. Oh, he's giving us a check? Sure, yeah, great job, JoJo. Right? You can't count that as Republican support.
Regarding the filibuster, at John Lewis's funeral, President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
Yes.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible.
Absolutely nobody knows what that means. Like, he paused for a long time, and then he said something completely unintelligible.
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible.
See, Caitlin Collins, who's a CNN shill for JoJo, she doesn't, she's one of the ones that are sort of protecting him here. And she lobs him a softball question on these, the filibuster, which the Democrats are pushing to get rid of, so the Republicans can't block their legislation and play obstructionist politics. And they're using the word Jim Crow a lot in terms of fixing, the Republicans doing things in terms of voter purging and things. This is a word they're using a lot, a term they're using a lot. And so she asked him sort of a yes or no question. Why not get rid of? If it's bad, why not get rid of it? And he pauses because he doesn't have an answer for this. Like, they didn't prep him, so he's got to come up and think on his feet. And this is what he does.
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible. Let's figure out how we can get this done and move in the direction of significantly changing the abuse of even the filibuster rule first. It's been abused from the time it came into being by an extreme way in the last 20 years. Let's deal with the abuse first.
It sounds like you're moving closer to eliminating the filibuster. Is that correct?
I answered your question.
No, you didn't. See, the thing about the filibuster rule, it's when you are the minority party. So right now, JoJo has a majority. He has a majority in the House. He has a majority in the Senate. In 2 years, he's not going to have that. So they have the presidency in both houses. And so if they get rid of the filibuster, the Republicans are screwed on a lot of things. They can pass through legislation. And so the filibuster is, a benefit to the Republicans. In 2 years or 4 years, it might not be the case, right? It might be, completely reversed. So that's the reason you don't get rid of it. But, everyone's pushing for them to get rid of it. And she asked him sort of a yes or no question, and he just babbled because he didn't have an answer written down, right? He has cue cards and stuff, which is, I don't care about that because, they all can have cheat sheets, but JoJo specifically needs them. But he just lost here. He's lost kind of throughout the press conference.
You also just made some news by saying that you are going to run for re-election.
I said that is my expectation.
So is that a yes, that you are running for re-election?
Look, I don't know where you guys come from, man. I've never been able to.
Yeah, I coming from Planet Zudo. You guys, I don't know, man. What's up with you, man? Come on, man. Where you guys coming from? We're already talking about re-election. This is my first presser. Come on, man.
Look, I don't know where you guys come from, man. I've never been able to travel. I'm a great respecter of fate. I've never been able to plan 3.5 years ahead for certain.
And if you do run, will Vice
he can't plan 3 or 4 years ahead. He's got a crackhead son to deal with, and he can barely find his keys and his toothbrush in the morning.
President Harris be on your ticket?
I would fully expect that to be the case. She's doing a great job. She's a great partner. She's a great partner.
And do you believe you'll be running against former President Trump?
Oh, come on. I don't even think about it. I have no idea. I have no idea whether there'll be a Republican Party. Do you? I know you don't have to answer my question, but I mean,
and there might not even be a Democratic Party. In fact, there might not even be a United States.
do you? I mean, look, this is the way I view things. I become a great respecter of fate in my life. I set a goal of that's in front of me to get things done for the people I care most about, which are hard-working, decent Americans.
So was it fate that you were the worst candidate of the whole Democratic nomination process, and that you were babbling and incoherent and strolling around? You were a gaffe magnet, and you were strolling around the debate stage and walking away from the podium. All the things that you did along the way and how they hid you, and you had more support, more money behind you, and they completely protected you, and they scammed Bernie Sanders. They rigged it against him by having Pete Buttigieg and Klobuchar withdraw and throw their support your way, and by having Lizzie Warren stay in and take away Bernie. Is that fate? And then all the things that you did afterwards, how they hid you away and hammered Trump endlessly as you hid in your basement and just weren't out there campaigning because you couldn't. Is that fate too? I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that's fate, but it certainly wasn't fair, and it wasn't like you gave it your best and lost. They hid you away and they rigged it, right? Come on, JoJo.
American people are getting really having it stuck to them. I want to change the paradigm. I want to change the paradigm. We start to reward work, not just wealth. I want to change the paradigm. If you notice, didn't you find it kind of interesting that my Republican friends were worried about that the cost and the taxes that had to be had, if there is any tax to be had as they talk about it, in dealing with the act that we just passed, which puts money in people's pockets, ordinary people? Do you hear?
You mean that people living in New York and California between state and federal taxes will be paying like 65% of their income in taxes? Is that what you're talking about, JoJo? Because of your handouts and all the rest of it? Is that what you mean? Was that why they're upset? Like, how dare they be upset for not wanting to pay 2/3 of their income in taxes, right? So you can give handouts, and how dare they, JoJo? Exactly. Why are these guys whining about their taxes?
I want to change the paradigm. If you notice, didn't you find it kind of interesting that my Republican friends were worried about that the cost and the taxes that had to be had, if there is any tax to be had as they talk about it, in dealing with the act that we just passed, which puts money in people's pockets, ordinary people? Do you hear them complain when they passed close to $2 trillion Trump tax cut, 83% going to the top 1%? Do you hear them talk about that at all? I love the fact that they found this whole idea of concern about the federal budget. It's kind of amazing. When the federal budget is saving people's lives, they don't think it's such a good idea. When the federal budget is feathering the nest of the wealthiest Americans, 90 of the Fortune 500 companies making billions of dollars not paying a cent in taxes, reducing taxes to the point that people who are making, if you're a husband and wife, a school teacher, and a cop, you're paying at a higher rate than the average person making $1 billion a year is.
Are you seriously saying you're taxing billionaires? Come on, bro. This is what he's raising taxes for people who are in the upper middle class, people making $400,000 a year, $200,000 a year, something like this. And he's basically gutting taxing the crap out of corporations, and corporations suck, but then they won't invest here or they'll go overseas. And so, yeah, everyone would like corporations to pay more. I want corporations to pay more. But when you do that, they go overseas or they cut back or whatever it is. It kills economic growth, and that's the unfortunate thing. And so, He knows that. I mean, he should know that.
Something's wrong. Their newfound concern. I'm concerned. Look, I meant what I said when I ran, and a lot of you still think I'm wrong, and I respect that. I said I'm running for 3 reasons. To restore the soul, dignity, honor, honesty, transparency to the American.
I've said this before. America, the government, doesn't have a soul. The land, yeah, the land, everything that's manifested, everything that's physical, has some sort of physical reality, has an energetic, spiritual component. And so, yeah, the earth, the plants, the people, the animals, they all have a spiritual essence. But him saying that, the whole restoring the soul was stupid. It implies that America was soulless, or it had a bad soul, or its soul was bad while Trump was president, right? But him saying restoring transparency, when earlier in the press conference he was asked by reporters, in my previous video about this, I covered it, if they could go to these centers, these immigration centers that are operating at 1,500 times beyond their capacity. They're packed with people, apparently like kids in cages and things like this, because there is a crisis there. And he said, yeah, I'll let you go in there when we get everything together, right? And that's the opposite of transparency. So, he's caught lying already. And it's just how long the media, and they're already calling him out on it a little bit here, but how long before they're saying, you're just an absolute liar. Like this is, then he's in Trump land. They start counting his lies and gumballs like CNN did.
American political system. 2, to rebuild the backbone of this country, the middle class. Hardworking people and people struggling to get in the middle class. They built America.
And how are you going to do that? By destroying whatever's left of our corporations, of our factories and things like this? They're not going to have any jobs. Like, what are you talking about, JoJo? You've just destroyed that. Like, he's like, everything he's saying, he's doing the exact opposite.
And unions built them. The 3rd reason I said I was running was to unite the country. And generically speaking, all of you said, no, you can't do that. Well, I've not been able to unite the Congress, but I've been uniting the country based on the polling data. We have to come together.
You have 52% was your high, JoJo. That's not uniting. That's half. And that's going to be drizzling down, right? Every time you stop, he's confused.
In front of the other and just trying to make things better for people. Just hard-working people. People get up every morning and just want to figure out how to put food on the table for their kids, be able to have a little bit of breathing room, being able to make sure that they go to bed not staring to the ceiling like my dad did, wondering whether, since he didn't have health insurance, what happens if mom gets sick or he got sick. These are basic things.
And people are going to get that with $1,400? You just gave away $2 trillion and some people are getting $1,400 of it. And so, again, these are people who aren't working because of COVID, all the mess that happened, because you guys, Democrats, push for close downs and things like this, destroying the economy, small businesses, mom and pop businesses going out of business. And so you're going to give them $1,400 of a $2 trillion COVID bailout when the deficit's up to $28 trillion. Now it's going to be even more. I have a whole thing to do on the economy and all the cash that they're printing. But there's like $84 trillion in collective debt, and then there's the derivatives market that's over $600 trillion at $150 trillion. I go through this every once in a while. I show everybody the massive amount of debt. It's like, a $250 billion worth of debt, and you're just adding to it by giving out bailouts, and it's a limited thing, right? How long is $1,400 going to last people when they're in economic crisis? And so, he says these things, but there's no basis in reality. There's no money left. There's just debt, and there's just more debt, and the system's collapsing, and things are going to be taken away. There's going to be austerity happening. Would have happened under Trump, would have happened under anybody. There's no fixing this. There's no guaranteeing people the same lifestyle. And you're going to be the dude. This is the face of the dude who eventually is going to be blamed for it, right?
That the vast majority of people, including registered Republicans by and large, share that same view, that same sense of what is, what's appropriate.
You know what's not appropriate? Snoozling, sniffling, and groping. I'm pretty sure most Republicans don't think that's appropriate, JoJo. So this is where JoJo shows you what decade he's living in.
Found your governor or mayor trying to attract business to your community. What's the first thing the business asked? What's the closest access to an interstate highway? How far am I from freight rail? Is the water available? Is enough water available for me to conduct my business?
How close are we to the nearest telegraph? Are we close to a Pony Express station? What are you talking about? A freight rail? Water? I don't know. High-speed internet? High-speed internet?
All the things that relate to infrastructure. We have somewhere, I asked the staff to write it down for me, and they did, not for this, but for a longer discussion. We have somewhere in terms of infrastructure, we rank 13th globally in infrastructure. China is investing 3 times more in infrastructure than the United States is. Bridges, more than 1/3 of our bridges, 231,000 of them, need repairs. Some are physical safety risks or preservation work. 1 in 5 miles of our highways and major roads are in poor condition. That's 186,000 miles of highway.
This is all true. He's right about this. Of course he is, because this is, he's reading off a piece of paper. But there's no money, JoJo. It'd be great to fix the infrastructure. There's no money. Everyone knows there's no money. What are you talking about, bro? Get your Pony Express going.
Aviation, 20% of all flights. 20% of all flights weren't on time, resulting in 1.5 million hours lost in production. 6 to 10 million homes in America still have lead pipes servicing their water lines. We have over 100,000 wellheads that are not capped, leaking methane. What are we doing? And by the way, we can put as many pipe fitters and miners on us to work capping those wells at the same price that they would charge to dig those wells.
Wow, that's cost effective. Confused again, JoJo.
So I just find it frustrating. You talk about, last point I'll make in the infrastructure, and I apologize for spending more time on it, but is that if you think about it, it's the place where we will be able to significantly increase American productivity, at the same time providing really good jobs for people. But we can't build back to what they used to be. We have to build, the global warming's already done significant damage.
He's talking about Agenda 21 here.
The roads that used to be above the water level didn't have to worry about where the drainage ditch was. Now you got to rebuild them 3 feet higher because it's not going to go back to what it was before. Only get worse unless we stop it. There's so much we can do. Look at all the schools in America. Most of you live in the Washington area now, but in your hometowns, I don't know where you're all from. How many schools where the kids can't drink the water out of the fountain?
All of them, fine.
How many schools are still in a position where there's asbestos? How many schools in America we're sending our kids to don't have adequate ventilation? How many?
And 5G. They have 5G that's cooking their cooking their reproductive systems in their brains. Yeah, it's all God, JoJo. Like, it's just we're living on a credit card. It's just a matter of, years or days, who knows.
These homes, buildings, office complexes are wasting billions of barrels of oil over time because they can't hold in the heat or the air conditioning because this leaks through the windows that are so porous and the connections. It's amazing.
We live in a real shithole, you're right. We live in a shithole country. JoJo, you're making a good point here.
So there's so much we can do that's good stuff, makes people healthier, and creates good jobs. And I think that I got one more question here. And Janet from Univision.
Thank you, Mr. President. We too have been reporting at the border, and just like Cecilia, we ran into a pair of siblings who came in on Monday, were detained by CBP, had the phone number for their mother who lives in the U.S. We have contacted the mother. That's the only way they know her kids are here, because CBP today, Thursday, has not contacted that mother. So when can we expect your promise of things getting better with contacting and expediting?
Well, they're already getting better, but they're going to get they're going to a whole hell of a lot better real quicker. We're going to hear some people leaving. Okay? We can get this done. We're going to get it done. I had a long meeting with the entire team and several cabinet level officers the other night. We're going to be moving within the next week over 100,000, 1,000 people out of the Border Patrol into safe, secure beds and facilities. We're going to significantly ramp up. We're already out there contacting everyone from getting some of the employees at HHS. There's a lot of them doing other things and move them into making those calls. We're in the process of rearranging and providing for the personnel needed to get that done. But I admire the fact that you were down there, you're making the calls yourself. It's real. The next thing that has to happen, though, as you well know, there have to be some certitude that this is actually mom, dad, or whomever. And there's ways to do that. There's ways to do that, a little bit like determining whether or not you got the right code for your credit card. What was your dog's name, kind of thing. I'm being a bit facetious, but not really.
What is your dog's name, JoJo? The one, remember, you were chasing in the shower and you broke your leg for about a week? Like, what's that dog's name? But anyways,
And also seeking harder data from DNA to birth certificates, which takes longer. So I want to do this as quickly, as humanly possible, and as safely as possible.
Well, no, treating the root causes in Latin America doesn't change things overnight. How do you realistically and physically keep these families from coming to the U.S. when things will not get better in their countries right away?
Well, I can't guarantee that, but I know.
So you see this, he just starts to wander away from the podium. Like, this isn't what you're supposed to do, JoJo. The camera's like, what is he doing? Where's he going? Like, there's no microphone. He can't answer. He's like, all right, wait, I got to go back. What did I do? I just wandered off. You get used to these things, right? JoJo's been doing this for a couple of years. It's no longer newsworthy. Only, Trump supporters and Republicans are pointing these things out. But the guy's not up for the job here. Like, you just can't wander off like that. Like, where's he going? He can hear her. She's mic'd up. Like, why is he walking towards her? JoJo.
That old thing, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. You know as well as I do. You cover it. You have it's not like somebody sitting on a hand-hewn table in Guatemala, in somewhere in Mexico or in Guadalupe saying, I got a great idea. Let's sell everything we have. Give it to a coyote. Have them take our kids across the border into a desert where they don't speak the language. Won't that be fun? Let's go. That's not how it happens. People don't want to leave. When my great-grandfather got in a coffin ship in the Irish Sea, the expectation was he going to live long enough on that ship to get to the United States of America. But they left because of what the Brits have been doing.
What were the Brits doing? Another confused. Every time I stop, the guy's confused. Like, that's his look from now on, for the rest of his life. He's the confused guy. And so what were the Brits doing, JoJo? Because Ireland, my mother is half Irish. My grandmother was Irish, an orphan. And so many people from Ireland came over, Irish people came over, because of what the Brits were doing. Right, JoJo? Let's talk about that, because the Brits are still doing those things. It's not the Brits. It's the Queen, right? It is this, I've been talking about the Queen in so many videos. It is this conglomerate called the Crown that owns 6.6 billion acres around the world and did colonial things, created colonies, and abused the Scottish and the Irish and then the Indians and so many countries in Africa and Australians and all these places around the world, colonizing them and subjugating them. And, let's expand on that. What about the Queen? What are you going to do about the Queen? You can help cancel the Queen, JoJo? If your dad, your grandfather left Ireland because of what the Brits, which he really means the Crown, was doing, and he risked his life for a better life here in America. But what's going to eventually happen is people are going to realize America's going south. There's just no way around it. And then people will be leaving America and going other places.
They were in real trouble. They didn't want to leave, but they had no choice. So I can't guarantee we're going to solve everything.
Yeah, you're not going to solve anything, bro. I mean, there's no money. You're not going to fix those other countries. You just talked about what a shithole country we live in. The infrastructure is breaking down on every level. And you're talking about fixing these countries that are even worse. They're so bad that they're risking their kids' lives across the desert just so they can have a chance at something coming to this shithole country, right? America's, going to be a second or third world country in the near future. Everything's falling apart. Our heyday is over. And you're just like you're a pre-boomer. You're not even a boomer. You're before boomers. And you're the president. Confused, out of touch, dementia-ridden.
But I can guarantee we can make everything better. We can make it better. We can change the lives of so many people. And the other thing I want to point out to you, and I hope you point out, I realize it's much more heart-wrenching, and it is, to deal with a 5 and 6 and 7-year-old. But you went down there and you saw the vast majority of these children, 70% are 16 years old, 17 years old, and mostly males. Doesn't make it good, bad, or indifferent, but the idea that we have tens of thousands of kids in these god-awful facilities that are...
The god-awful facilities you're in charge of, bro? God-awful facilities? You're talking about America, buddy.
In these god-awful facilities that are really little babies crying all night. There's some, that's true. That's why we got to act. And yesterday, I asked my team, both the director of the two agencies as well as others, I asked them what would they in fact, and I asked their opinion because they're the experts, but I said, focus on the most vulnerable immediately. But there's no reason why in the next month as people cross the border, that phone call can't be made in the first 48 hours and begin.
If I may ask one last question, have you had any talks with Senate Republicans who are threatening this administration with not considering the immigration legislation that was passed in the House until the situation at the border has been resolved?
No, because I know they have to posture for a while. They sort of got to get out of their system. This is but I'm ready to...
Crisis. He was told not to say crisis, but he was like, this is a crisis. They're going to have to do something. That was a gaffe of, like he was going to say something. He realized, hey, I'm not supposed to say that.
Ready to work with any Republican who wants to help solve the problem or make the situation better. But folks, I'm going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Kablam! So, like I said, there were some gaffes, and everybody loves the gaffes. I mean, the gaffes are quick and, things that you can see quickly on the internet and you laugh at, whatever. And JoJo has some gaffes in here. Bitter Trump supporters and Republicans love the gaffes. But there's something more insidious, a bigger problem here. And that is that things aren't going to go well. Like, JoJo says he trusts in fate. America's fate is bad, and JoJo's fate is bad. JoJo's a career politician, a liar. He's a part of so many evil things that the American government did on so many levels. And so his fate isn't good. He didn't deserve to win, right? He didn't, earn this. He wasn't a popular candidate. People didn't connect with him. And he was put in there because of Trump, and they thought he was the best person to beat Trump, or whatever their reasoning was. He wasn't, he didn't deserve to win. The Democrats didn't put out any real quality candidates, people that had like rock star potential. Like they didn't have an Obama or a Clinton, a Bill Clinton, who was, somebody who was inspirational. They had Bernie, but they didn't like Bernie. They don't want a socialist. And so they made it so JoJo won the primary, and then they hit him and hammered Trump, and they did whatever they did. But now they're stuck with this guy when America's fate is not, we're not going in the right direction. I mean, we're going in the right direction spiritually, but economically, America's just slowly sliding down into, the second spot, the third spot in terms of the world economy and all these things, right? We're on the decline. The people are, entitled and weak and selfish, each generation getting worse. This happens when an empire fails, an empire collapses. And that's what JoJo's presiding over. I said it during the election process. All these people who are thinking, if Trump wins, it's a disaster. If Biden wins, a disaster. If anybody won, it was going to be a disaster. The disaster's coming, right? And the disaster is only in the sense of a material disaster. There's nothing wrong with what's going to happen. Empires are supposed to collapse. It sucks for us in terms of our lifestyle, but spiritually it'll be great. Americans have to mature. We have to, divest ourselves of just our materialistic lives, and we have to become more spiritual people. It's what I say about the heartfulness system all the time. One of the primary teachings is a bird needs two wings to fly, a spiritual wing and a material wing. And we have not been working on our spiritual wing at all, in terms of America. People are, not spiritual. They might be a little bit religious, but that's not spiritual. And they're religious. Most people are religious to pray for their material. You understand, their material wing. People become religious in the sense they go to God and pray for their material difficulties. And so, the God business is really good when people are miserable and they're suffering, and so they pray to God to help them. Oh, please, God, save me from this material misery, right? They get bad news, bad diagnosis, whatever it is. They get, financially bad news. They have some tragedy, and they haven't thought about God in years, and all of a sudden, oh, God, please help me, right? Because they've lost all other options. And so that's one of the benefits to a collapsing economy, is that Americans will become more spiritual. They'll become less arrogant, right? We won't be this, this overwhelming superpower. We'll be a country collapsing and our lifestyles collapsing. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, wow, what about God, right? Because when you've exhausted all your other avenues, you focus on God. And so, that's why the heartfulness system is here, because we're going to have a lot of difficulties worldwide, and this might open the door for people to really focus on a spiritual life, one where they're not obsessed with just their material pleasures and their egos, but they'll connect with their soul and go deeper. And that's what we can hope for. Other than that, it's just a one-way trip into a collapsing worldwide global economic system, and all the negative things that go with it. And JoJo is the captain of that ship, right? These, god-awful facilities. Way to go, JoJo. It's Paul Romano definitely reporting from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.